Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Another edition of Off the Top Rope. Some big news. It's non-wrestling, but it does relate to wrestling. Darby Allin has officially confirmed, or it's been at least officially confirmed, he has climbed Mount Everest. It has happened. We finally reached the point of, hey, Darby Allin, professional wrestler, after he was supposed to do it last year, he's doing it this year in the middle of what was supposed to be a world title push. What inopportune timing. But he has climbed Mount Everest, which means that, he's probably coming back to AEW relatively soon. I don't know what the recovery is from competing such a feat like that, but we'll see. Here's why it's interesting to me. As we know, a week from Sunday, or depending on when you watch this, because this is exactly a week before Double or Nothing, Will Ospreay's taking on Hangman Adam Page in the Owen Hart Cup tournament men's final to determine who will face Jon Moxley, unless Jon Moxley has a world title match and you could present it. But Jon Moxley is going to be the world champion going into All In. Like that's happening. So one of those two men is going to face Jon Moxley in Texas at Globe Life Field in July. Now, with Darby Allin being back into the picture, everybody seemingly thought that Darby Allin was going to be the guy to end Jon Moxley. They've been telling this story since Jon Moxley won the world championship at Wrestle Dream last year from Bryan Danielson and effectively retired Bryan Danielson. And Darby Allin was really the centerpiece of this whole arc against the Death Riders. He crashed a car into their vehicle, which was insane. And they effectively wrote Darby Allin off of television near the end of last year. I think it was on the New Year's Eve edition of Rampage, I think it was. It was one of the last episodes of Rampage, ironically. So this becomes really interesting because no matter who wins at Double or Nothing, with Darby Allin back in the picture, it makes you wonder, is AEW going to have Jon Moxley retain in Texas? Because if they are, that is a horrible idea. I like Darby Allin as much as the next guy. That guy ain't a world champion. That guy is not a world champion. I love him. I think he has a little bit of Jeff Hardy to him. But like he's a small guy. He does take so many unnecessary risks. It's not what a major world champion should feel like. And separate from that, if we have to deal with because here's what would potentially be the plan that is seemingly sorted out, is that Jon Moxley retains in Texas against whoever it is, whether it's Will Ospreay or Hangman Adam Page. I think it should be Hangman Adam Page, and if Hangman Adam Page wins, he should absolutely beat Jon Moxley. So whoever gets to Texas, if this is the plan to have Darby Allin be the world champion, Jon Moxley retains. That means we get probably 3 months more of Jon Moxley and the Death Riders as world champion. Do you guys really want to see that? Hell no. I don't want to see that. This is the worst world championship run maybe in any major North American promotion in a long time. Like, this is bad. Jon Moxley, I think he's a better wrestler than most people give him credit for. He has had pay-per-view stink bomb after stink bomb. The match with Orange Cassidy at Full Gear was bad. The 4-way at World's End was bad. The Revolution match was bad. The Dynasty match was bad. The Samoa Joe match was actually kind of tolerable, even if it had a shit finish, which still defies any logic. They're saying Gabe Kidd now works for the Death Riders. Well, that's great. You have your other people in there, and now Claudio's getting outcasted. It's just, listen, I don't want to put up with the Death Riders anymore. They need to end this in Texas. I know they probably had a vision in mind with Darby Allin being the centerpiece of this, and they probably wanted Darby to win the Owen. But they went a different way because Darby had other priorities, because last year he couldn't climb Mount Everest because he broke his foot, and this year he decided to do it in the middle of the biggest push of his career. All due respect to Darby Allin, and I have a ton of respect for him for what he has done as part of AEW and has built himself up as a star for this company. But he's not a world champion, and also the fact that he went away to do this in the middle of a potential big-time push, that tells you everything you need to know. his priorities are in a lot of different places. So that part of it is a problem. And then the part that if we were going to do this, we would have to wait at least a couple, because I don't think they would do it at All Out. I think they would wait until Wrestle Dream. They would wait until Wrestle Dream, which would be in October, and that would mean another 3 months of the Death Riders and Jon Moxley holding on to that championship. I can't do it anymore. I know you guys can't do it anymore. Even the sickest of the sickos cannot deal with this anymore. So, all due respect to Darby Allin, I don't think he's a world champion. And just by the fact that he went away for basically about 5-6 months in the middle of a world title push, and you're going to delay potentially 2 satisfying conclusions to this. Whether I think it should be Hangman, because I think he's the best character and the best storyteller in this company by far. And him beating Moxley, they've got history. That makes a ton of sense. If you want to go with Will Ospreay, I get it. He's been your ace for the last 2 years. And he frankly deserves to be world champion. I just don't think it makes a ton of sense to do it right now when you got a much better, arc to get to that. And like I said, Hangman got screwed over last year. He would potentially be getting screwed over this year. I feel like this has almost been kind of punishment because he was the one who kind of, started the whole thing with CM Punk a few years ago. And it's almost like Tony Khan has punished him for that because he hasn't really sniffed a world title picture. He's had a couple of matches for it, and he was kind of mixed in a lot of this world title stuff with Moxley. But I just listen. It feels like they're going in the complete wrong direction, and it's like, listen, I'm all for long-term booking, and I understand that maybe they wanted to have a direction based off how this whole thing started. Darby had the world title match. He lost it to Moxley. Moxley ended up beating one of his heroes. There's a story there. I get it. And there was a long-term arc. But you had a disruption. Darby went and did something else. You have to pivot. They should have done it with Swerve. I would have been moderately okay if they would have done it with Copeland. But it would have been the best idea in the world to have a 50-year-old man be your world champion at this stage of his career. As much as I love Adam Copeland and what he's done for the wrestling business, even though I think he's been really not as giving as I thought he was in AEW when he was in WWE. It's just I don't see a benefit of going and waiting on Darby Allin and going back to what was your initial plan and having him be the world champion. I think whoever wins the Owen should be the one who beats Jon Moxley in Texas, and which just end it there because this has gone on for far too long. There's been far too many bad stories and bad matches that have gone on, and just a bunch of nonsense that has dragged this company down. That, like I said, Samoa Joe was legitimately the first really good match that Jon Moxley has had with this title run, at least first title match that he's had. That's not good. That's not good when this championship run started in October, and now we're in May, and that was the first really decent. And it wasn't even that great. It was decent. Everything else that he's done has been shit. So if AEW wants to wait on that and go with Darby Allin, like I said, I'm all for long-term storytelling. If you were going to do it, he should have won the Owen. And sadly, he made a decision. He made a commitment to go climb Mount Everest, and more power to him. But when you're signed to a wrestling promotion, you've got a priority to them. This is the problem with Tony Khan. He lets his wrestlers do whatever they want, and that can't happen. So if they're going to go that direction, I think it's a terrible idea. Whoever wins the Owen should be the one to beat Jon Moxley in Texas at All In. That's where I'm landing on this. But this is a very interesting wrinkle to keep your eyes on, especially if and when Darby Allin does a return to television, because that's just going to create a whole bit of misdirection no matter who wins this match next Sunday at Double or Nothing. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.